Good evening, everyone, and hello. My name is Zenzi Sewa, and I'm here today with Katherine, and I love her glasses. I did tell her that before we started.
But like super close so you can see them. There you go.
And Katherine is an executive coaching and image consultant. And of course, you know, our program is about how we approach our spirituality, what made us be aware of our spirituality, and how we use different tools to help us overcome situations in our life, because we are living in a world where people are becoming aware that there is a power inside, and there's so many of us are saying everything begins inside. And as we go through our journey, some of us are stuck, some of us don't know what to do, how to do. There's conventional ways, there's so-called unconventional, but everything is supposed to lead to one thing, and one thing alone, is to get us to connect to our inner power, our higher self. We're all different. We have all different cultures and all different things and our different karmas that interact with our life. And therefore, the universe is wisdom, and it has brought us many tools that we can use. So in my programs, I'm exploring those different tools and asking people to come on and talk about the tools they use to overcome those anomalies, those challenges within their life, which we're all going through. So without much ado, can I now introduce you and hand you over to Katherine?
Thank you, Sensi. It's so nice to be here. I don't know if you want to tell the audience, but I actually found you through your son.
Yes, my son also does podcasting, but he's neurodivergent, and it's brilliant, and so much is coming up, and he does that part, I do the spiritual part.
Yeah, it's so fantastic. It's such a nice balance.
Yeah.
And it's great because basically I was on Eli's podcast, and then he's like, hey, my mom likes you. Can you on her podcast? I'm like, sure. It's like all in the family. It's such a great thing. Like, how many moms and sons do podcasts together? Very many of them, right? I
encourage him. He started off before me, so I'm there. But it's great. We complement one another.
Yeah, I think so. So you've asked me to talk about spirituality, and in my practice over the years, I've had to come to grips with the fact that my profession often has a lot of rules, right? Wear this, speak this way, show up this way, manage this way. Like it's quite rule bound, and in the image world, also quite rule bound. Like wear the colors that suit you, and wear the clothes that suit your body, and wear the things that are good for your industry. And while there is a place for all of those things, my personal take on it is that all of those things should only be a vehicle for you to fully express who you are and do what you came here to do.
I quite agree.
Yeah. And so it's been an interesting journey because not everybody feels the same way, and that's totally fine. And the people that resonate with that approach will find me, and if I can help them, I will. But for me personally, I've always had quite a deep connection to something. I remember being quite young and having that sense of I am.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, it's the I am sensation.
Or somebody, something.
Yeah. Yeah.
More than just a thing.
Yeah.
More important.
There's something else going on here. And my parents are not religious, even though like my father's family is Ukrainian Catholic. So they have a very deep Orthodox tradition. And my father didn't subscribe to that. So my mother grew up in the United Church, which is of course very liberal in its application of biblical texts and teachings, and tends to be more inclusive than some other faiths are. So I grew up sort of faithless in many ways. Like we went to church maybe for 3 years out of my whole life, but I still knew what the Bible was, and I still read it, and I still had connection with it. But I couldn't ever figure out why what I felt was spirit and what was written in the books didn't always match up.
Okay.
And it wasn't until later that I learned, of course, the Bible is still written by men. It might be inspired by spirit, but it's still written by men. It's still in a cultural, historical context. Some of the things do still apply to our lives today. There are sort of universal truths that can be taken, but as can be taken from any holy book.
Yeah.
right? There are universal truths that can be taken, but I tend to have a take what you like and leave the rest approach to religion.
I know where you're coming from.
Right?
I understand.
So I had that as a kid, and then I was sort of longing, like when I was in my early, like sort of 11, 12, 13, somewhere in that early teenage area, I had a longing for connection. And I tried to get it through church. I tried to get it through friends, but it just didn't really, none of those things really got it, really hooked it up. And it wasn't until later in my life when I realized, oh, I can do what I like. I can have my own relationship to spirit.
Yes.
I don't need an intermediary to tell me what that is. I know what that is.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right. And so then when I got a little bit more connected, then I was able to use all kinds of intuitive tools and all kinds of, like, I'm a big fan of anything that brings you a little bit closer to understanding who you are and what your purpose is. Great. Do that thing. I don't care if it's a cosmopolitan quiz in a magazine, or if it's an in-depth Enneagram analysis, or if it's an astrological reading, or if it's tarot cards, or if it's the Bible, or if it's your pastor, or if it's whatever.
Yeah.
Anything that brings you closer to yourself and closer to your connection to source, go for it.
And what you're saying, to give you a greater understanding, a better understanding as you travel life's path, so that you can understand and maneuver yourself around.
Exactly. Like, you know where to go. And it's so I've been kind of doing, I'm not kind of doing, I am doing, I commit to it. I am doing this experiment around really listening to my intuition.
Yes.
So what will happen if I really listen to my intuition and just do whatever my intuition suggests is the right thing to do? Now, this is contingent on me being regulated and being embodied and being calm, and then I can listen. Otherwise, sometimes those voices you think are your intuition are just like unhealed parts of yourself, like your inner teenager is driving the bus, or your inner child is driving the bus, or your critical parent is driving the bus, right? Your wise, loving advisor is not online. So once I'm able to connect to that place, then I have a good sense of my intuition. And it's funny because I just had an experience. I was going to see a client in San Francisco, and I'm based in Vancouver. And my intuition said, pack a swimsuit. And I'm like, why would I pack a swimsuit? The hotel we're going to have a pool. Why would I do that? And when we got down to San Francisco, the hotel we were staying at was behind a picket line, which I'm not going to cross. I don't want to. So we ended up going to a different hotel, and the hotel had a pool.
There you see,
right? Go find something I could use as a swimsuit, which I did. But I was like, yeah, intuition, you got me. And that's just a little example. Yeah. And there's big examples, right? Of what should I do with my life? What would be the next right thing? And that's been a little bit more of a test of faith. And it's a little bit scary. It's like, really, I could just do that crazy intuitive thing and it could work? What? So we'll see. We'll see. I'm experimenting, leaning a little bit harder into my faith and away from fear, really, as a motivator.
It's interesting what you just said. It can be scary. And this is what I found and what I tell other people, because the way we think, it makes us do this. But your higher self and the intuitions know that, no, you should do this. And because of the way we are programmed and we are geared, and I say to the lower engine, we find ourselves in situations that don't make us happy. And it's time now for us to unplug into the higher engine, the higher source, which I call the superconscious mind. And when you do that, of course, everything in some cases go out the window, because you do see, because it's actually sitting on top of the mountain and looking down in the valley, where we're in the valley, we can't see the leaves for the trees. No. And so I think this is what you're now finding. It is a test of faith, because you are going to do something totally different, and it can be scary.
That's right. And it's also, for me, I think the central struggle around that is, here's what I think society expects. Here's what I want to do. So I'll give you an example. I am a big fan of coaching. I have coaches myself. I guess it was August of 2022, maybe 2023. Anyway, somewhere in the last couple of years, I read a book that was something about the millionaire, something. Like, I want to be careful not to name names. So I read this book by this author, and I thought, what this person is writing is very similar to another coach. And I wonder if this guy that wrote the book coached her. So I thought, well, I could go coach with that coach. Like, my ego got all up in it. And I phoned him and plunked down a ridiculous amount of money. I think it was something like 40 grand. It was a ridiculous amount of money.
Ouch.
To go coach with this man, thinking, this is what I need. I need some discipline. I need some success. I need someone who I can listen to and get things done. And no. And his whole paradigm is incredibly masculine. It's incredibly old world. It's incredibly structured, work harder, do these things. Like, it was just, even as I describe it, my whole stomach is just like, and I was in that room and I felt worthless. Like, even though he's talking about, well, you need to add value, and is asking me these questions about, well, how do you add value? And the questions sent me into a total tailspin of absolute depression. Like, it took me right down into the suicide.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like, it was bad, because it was almost this existential moment of, well, if I'm not a millionaire, like, if I don't have a 7-figure business, I only have a 6-figure business. I don't have a 7-figure business. I don't have a giant beach house on the beach somewhere. I have a beautiful little 2-bedroom condo in the heart of Vancouver, which I adore, right? It's like, oh my God, I only have this Mercedes C350 that's 12 years old and I absolutely love. Oh my God, I don't have a Rolls Royce. Like, it was this ridiculous compare and despair awfulness.
It made you feel worthless.
It made me feel worthless and disconnected from spirit and completely out of my body, totally dysregulated. And I was like, oh my God, but if this person is successful and I have to do that to be successful, then it was like, well, I guess I don't want that. I don't want that.
Oh my God.
It was brutal. So I finally, of course, I did all the right things that one would do when one is feeling that bad. Reach out to friends, get some counseling.
Oh dear.
Right. And affirm, yes, I'm supposed to be here on the planet. Like, yes, I'm supposed to be doing my work on the planet. Not
you
supposed
are
to.
Worth so much.
Right. And his whole take on my work, because he also connected me with a book publisher, totally fine. And I wrote the book. So I have a book out called Executive Being, Humanizing Business One Leader at a Time. And this person wrote back that my book was giant self-help, not good for anybody, not going to help anybody, not, like, totally
he trashed it.
Prejudicial, arrogant. He was incredibly judgmental of it, he's allowed to do that. That's totally fine. But I think it's because my paradigm and his paradigm are not overlapping. They just don't have any common ground. And my belief is that his paradigm is very old school. Mm-hmm. It's the world that is going away, not the world that is coming.
Yes.
And so there was just a real schism there. And I did, I'm like, okay, well, this person's written 60 books. He's got some weight. So I took it to my first readers again. I said, hey, here's some feedback I've gotten. What do you think? I took it to a couple of other old white guys. What do you think? And one of the old white guys, both adorable men, he said, he goes, if you want to reach a wider audience, he said, you could soften the language a little bit. He said, but I don't want you to lose any of your edge, because your edge is you and the voice is unique. Mm-hmm. He said, but you could change this. And so instead of writing 7 appendixes for my old white guys, I wrote 7 appendices for my very experienced leaders. Because the truth is, they are very experienced.
Yes.
They just sometimes have experience in a system that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And that's hard. Like, I feel for experienced leaders right now, because they're like, oh, everything I did then isn't working.
Yeah.
So now what do I do? Right. So, and my work is on the forefront of that. What do I do now? And yours is too. We're all part of the transition team.
Yes.
Right. Yes. We're all doing the heavy lifting. So anyone who's out there listening and feeling like it's hard, like you're alone, like you're doing a lot of spiritual, mental, emotional labor right now, welcome to the team. Like, get on board. Keep going. Right?
Yes. It's the way.
Right? It's the way. Like, this is the way.
It is us. We are awakening to the truth of who we really are and what drives us.
That's right. And this, I think a lot of the other things are fear-based. Although I think if somebody wants to pursue status, that's totally fine. Like, go for it. Go for it. If you want to pursue that kind of material success, go for it. If your relationships support that, go for it. Like, have fun. Enjoy it.
Yes.
And don't assume that your way should be everybody's way.
Exactly. But I also think as you say, where the new way going, there's nothing wrong with success and wealth, and because we're supposed to have everything, and I mean everything, in abundance. Yes. Abundance wealth, abundance health, abundance happiness, abundance joy, but with that correct mindset. And when you get that correct mindset is when you connect to your spirituality, everything is in balance.
Exactly. And I think it's also an embodied experience. I think sometimes spirituality has done it, or religion has done people a disservice because they want to disconnect their bodies from their mental experience. Yeah. And I don't think you can think your spirit. You can't think it. You might think about the experiences you've had, but anytime I've ever had a spiritual experience, it's in my body. Yeah. It's singing, it's moving, it's dancing, it's like really great sex, it's like sleeping, it's embodied. And I think it's really important to be connected to your body. Yes. If you want to be connected to spirit. Even something as simple as like, okay, I'm just going to feel what my body feels like today. Okay. Right. Yeah. As simple as that can be a spiritual experience. Everything can be devotional.
Yes. Because as I said earlier on, we are spiritual beings with a physical body having a human experience. Really? That's why we're here. And a human experience is with that physical body, the senses.
That's right. You're going to have sensations. It's a sensual experience.
That's what we're here to experience.
Exactly. So like, why would you cut yourself off from that? Then it's like, that's like, I don't know, lining up for the roller coaster and then stopping before you get on the ride and then just like leaving with the people who went on the ride.
You don't have the ride. You never had the experience.
You never had the ride, you know? And I love the, my personal little, little visualization of this world. I tend to think it's like a simulation. It's like a video game that, you know, we're all in the other world and we all sign our soul contracts. Okay. Hey, you can be on my ride this time. Hey, and you're going to play this part for me and let's do this. And you set the whole thing up, sign all the contracts, and then you're born and you forget it all. And then you just have the experience. Yes. And then after, like, so as you're going through the experience, it's like you level up. So I don't know. It's like, okay, you get married to a really great person. You're like, marriage points, level up. Or like, I don't know, you buy a house or you rent a great apartment and you're like, living experience, level up.
Yes.
Right? Experience. It's fun. It's so joyful to do that. And I don't want to discount the fact that sometimes life is really hard. Yeah. And it's the idea that when things are hard, what do you do with that? So you say, oh, okay. Yeah, I kind of struggle with that because I don't want to suggest that anybody who's in a really difficult situation signed up for that. But I don't know, maybe they did. Like maybe someone who's severely disabled signed up for an experience to be cared for. Mm-hmm. Yes. Right? Maybe somebody just said, I want to go level 10. Like if you want to pick level 1 of the video game in this creation of it, you sign up as white, wealthy, cisgendered man. Yeah. That's level 1. That's the easiest level to play on. Yeah. Right? If you want the most difficult level, you're going to sign up for poor, person of color, living in a third world. What else would be like make it really hard? Oh yeah, like you're mentally, maybe you're neurodivergent, or maybe you have a disability of some kind. Like those are the much harder levels to play on. Yeah. And how we handle them. Yeah, and how do we handle them? And I think there's a real opportunity for grace. Yes. For all the people who are playing on an easy level. Yes. To spread it around. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Right? Spread it around. Yeah. you know.
Yes.
But yeah, I tend to think it's a video game. And then I think there's a debrief afterwards where like all the people get together and they're like, oh yeah, you were supposed to teach me about disconnection. Man, you did a good job of that. I knew when I picked you, you would be able to resist my charms, and you did a great job. Disconnection. Like, I don't know. I think there's a debrief at the end. So maybe, I don't know. I don't know what anybody thinks about it, but that's what I think. It's fun.
Well,
like
it is said that when we come to this earth, and what you said is, yes, we sign up, we've come to learn, experience, or probably to correct from a previous lifetime. And as when we come here, we go through the veil of amnesia to wipe it all out.
Right.
So that we're starting, and then it is really how we handle it, tools that we've probably gained from a previous lifetime. It's at different levels. We come at different levels.
Absolutely.
But keep on going, because that's how we gain wisdom.
Yeah.
That's our wisdom. If you haven't felt pain, how do you know what pain is?
Right.
If you've never known a strawberry, you can never yearn for a strawberry.
No.
And you don't know what the strawberry tastes like. Yeah. But it's because we know what happiness and joy is, that when we come, we yearn for that. So now it's, how do we go through life to regain that happiness? And that is our road of challenges. And from what I'm doing with you're finding it.
Well, it's funny. I was just going to say something about yearning. How yearning in and of itself is a delicious emotion. That sense of like longing. And this is what I love about the emotional experience, is the breadth of the range of emotions that you get to have. And I'm thinking of an old boyfriend that I dated who's some lovely man. His emotional range is like this big. Sorry, I should turn it this way so the camera can see it. His highs and lows all occur on this narrow range. And my highs and lows are like off camera, like massive. But I just love having all of that content to work with, and that level of like that artist's palette of colors to paint with. And it's great for my art, and it's great for my life. And I think sometimes what happens in our world, kind of the way it's constructed now, is we discount the feelers. Yeah. We do a lot for the thinkers, but we discount the feelers. And I know that that's changing. Yes. Changing through my work, changing through your work, and the work of many other people. But for those of us that are feelers, sometimes it takes a bit of time to grow, to kind of throw off the cloak of logic that people will try to put on you. Yes. And be able to learn how to ride the waves, so that then once you've passed through the emotional and it's given you all the information you need, then your frontal cortex comes back online and you can make clear decisions. Yes. With the benefit of all the information that your emotional life gives you. That's correct. And sometimes that takes a while. And I really want to speak to anyone in the audience who feels like a late bloomer, right? We see a lot of top 40 under 40 lists, and, top 30 under 30. And these people are so successful by this age and all of that. I really want to see a top 100 under 100. Like, that would be a list, of people who bloomed later. And this idea that you have to do everything so quickly is insanity, absolute insanity. Yeah. Right. I didn't start my business full time until I was 39. I was 38 and turned 39. I didn't get married until I was 36. I didn't write my first book until I was 50. Like, there's time for all of those things. Yes. So if there's anyone out there who's feeling like a late bloomer, get plugged into source. Don't worry about the timeline. And I like the way you're saying get plugged into source, because when you do get plugged into source, it will guide you. Yeah, it's easier. Easier. And each one of us has our own journey, and each one of us is unique. Yes. We've come for ourselves, not for anybody else. Yeah. And therefore, whatever journey we have, it's relevant to us. No matter what anybody else is, they've come to do what they've come to do. Right. You've come to do what you've come to do. And therefore, it is about
And I say to people, be selfish. You've got to think about you. And when I say be selfish, probably say, what I'm saying, concentrate on you, because you can't change anybody else. You can only change you. And yet you will have a good effect. Like, you've written a book, you're doing coaching because of what you've gone through as well. And those ups and downs gains you wisdom and experience.
Over time, for sure.
Over
It's
time.
really been learning first of all, that is valuable.
Yes.
To have a wide emotional range, and then learning how to be regulated in that emotional range.
Yes.
Really important. And learning how to really soak the joy out of all of those experiences. Like, I personally love being, like, I was in Cuba for a friend's wedding, and we went to this really cool place called Fattoria dell'Arte Cubano, which is it's a factory that they've turned into this amazing space where there's like 3 different clubs, and there's a it's stores, and it's just it's so cool. But there was this jazz band playing, and I got a seat on a little stool. I'm sitting in the front row looking up at the stage. And this woman was so beautiful, and she sang this song, and it was so sad. Of course, it's in Spanish. I don't know what it is, but the music moved me, and I'm literally sitting there with just like feeling the tears in my face. And I was like, this is so great. And I said to her afterwards, I got to meet the band, which was great. And I said, what was that about? And she goes, it was everything that we've lost because of COVID. Because of COVID.
Okay, fine.
Everything we lost in the pandemic. And I was like, okay, no wonder, right? No wonder. It was a lament. It was a lament. The
emotion, the energy. You felt you were singing.
Yeah, the energy and emotion, right? So it was so amazing. But I want to be that person that weeps and grieves deeply, and the person that loves and dances deeply, right? All those things. It's just really enjoyable for me.
The experiences you want to, that's what we've come for. We've come for experiences, as well as to go through and experience, because it is wisdom, it is understanding, it is part of life, and it makes us that more sympathetic towards others. Because if we don't go through and we don't, unfortunately, grieve or suffer, we cannot understand what others are going through.
No. And there's no opportunity for empathy.
Yeah, we won't have empathy. And we shouldn't be afraid when we go through these things. And it is about how we overcome them in the correct way, with that higher source. So that we don't overcome them by putting others down or destroying others, but getting through it with that wisdom and helping others as well, and giving us understanding.
Yeah, to like look to the way showers that help us get where we're going. I find for me, what works really well is ritual, like bookending my day.
Yeah.
One of my teachers is Kate Northrup, and she does great work around time, money, abundance for humans. Fantastic. Highly recommend. Check her out. And she talks about predictability, that we're kind of big, like things like kids work well when they have a predictable schedule. And we're just big kids. So we also work well when we have predictable pieces that we can build into our lives, particularly when the world is unpredictable.
Yes.
So even though there's war in the world right now, even though inflation is coming down, thankfully, but is still a thing, even though mental health challenges are on the street and people are getting hurt, people are not being cared for, there's a lot of things in the world that are going on that are unpredictable. Predictably, I am lucky to be able to wake up in the morning and sit down for a few minutes with my morning pages and say, okay, what's the date today? Where am I at in my cycle? Because I subscribe to cyclical planning. And actually, I don't cycle regularly anymore. I'm in perimenopause. I'm old enough for that now. So that's my phase. And what's the moon doing? What are the planets doing? What's the energy in the world doing? Okay. What's my focus for today? What's my prime intention for today? So like, for example, my intention today is to be calmly present for all the things I need to be doing today. For this interview, for the other things that I'm doing, the other coaching work that I'm doing, I want to be calm and centered and present.
Okay.
That's my intention. And then I look at, what's my tarot card? I usually pull a card for inspiration in the morning. Okay, what do I need to keep in mind today? where do I need to go intuitively today? And then I will do a prayer, like I'll write a prayer out and then meditate on it or speak on it for a little while. And it could be something about being abundant. It could be something about connecting to source. It could be something about needs and desires in the quantum realm. It could be any number of things. Meditate on that a little bit. And then I have my predictable, like I work out. I move in the morning because I would like to be an active 80-year-old. So
Yes.
I move in the morning. And then I make sure I feed myself in the morning because I need to be fed. I dress in the morning, right? I have this sort of predictability around my routine and then go through my day. And then in the evening, I have a closure ritual where I will do my evening pages. So how was my energy today? How was my focus today? What really went well today? What didn't go so well today? What did I learn about that? What am I grateful for? And listen to a meditation, have some wind down. I admit that sometimes I fall off my evening ritual and end up watching TikToks and falling asleep. It's not great. Right now, I love TikTok, but right. So I have this ideal, like read and meditate and go to sleep. Doesn't always happen. My inner child takes over a little bit sometimes. But there is a certain predictability to those parts of my life. And also, if I skip it for a day, if I don't I'm just like, okay, I skipped it today.
No problem.
Right. I move on to the next day. I don't beat myself up about it. I go with the flow on those, but I'm always working to stay connected to and embodied, connected to source, embodied, and working through things. And I will ask, I'll be like, hey, universe, like, I'm going to put this on your to-do list. Can you control that?
Exactly.
To-do list.
And we can do that. And we need to realize we can. Can I go back a little what you said about your cyclical in to start the day?
Yeah.
And you look at the moon and the cycles. Could you go just explain to people what that is and how you do that? Because people are listening and this is new. So they were like, it's
totally new. And it is not my teaching. It is absolutely teaching from Kate Northrup.
Okay.
So you go to katenorthrup.com. She has plenty of time. She has her Do Less book. I'm in one of her courses right now called Relaxed Money. So this is her concept, but it has been a game changer for me because I used to go very well. I like a plan. So I would have the 90-day action plan for my business. I would have my day plan. I had my little 3x5 card where I would write everything out for my day. I had a structure. But when I went into that hyper masculine and then bottomed out, I came out of that going, I want to find something that feels more natural to me, that feels softer, that feels more feminine, right? If you're thinking archetypes, masculine, feminine. And so I found Kate and her podcast is plenty, but I found Heal the Way You Work. And that's where she talks about this cyclical planning. And the moon is there for everybody. And the world has an energy about it, right? A cyclical energy. And we are cyclical beings. But because the world was set up by dudes who run on a 24-hour hormonal cycle, their energy is the same all the time, every day. So women get a bad rap for being unpredictable, but women are incredibly predictable on a cycle, whether it's 28 days, 35 days, totally predictable. So our energy is going to vary depending on where we are in our cycle. Right. And so she goes into great detail. Highly recommend it. But so this is the system that I've adopted, and it's made a huge difference for me, because then it removes all that sense of, oh my God, I'm not doing enough. Oh no, I don't feel the same. I don't want to work out that way today. I don't want, it puts me into my body in a very real and profound way that has changed a lot of things for me this year.
Does that include when you're looking at the moon as well?
Yeah. So the way that she describes it is every phase of the moon, like the seasons, like anything else, has an energy to it.
Yeah.
So there are certain tasks that you can do in your business or in your life that go with the energy of that particular phase of the moon.
That flow.
Yeah, with the flow. And so then if you program those tasks at those times, it's easier. You don't have to work so hard.
Yeah.
You don't have to push and force things. So I 10 out of 10, 11,000 out of 10 would recommend. I know I'm on podcast to talk about my book and my own work, but seriously, this woman is one of my way showers, and I highly recommend her work.
Can you, I know you spoke about earlier on of going to the hotel and that intuition and having the swimsuit, and then it worked out.
Mhm.
What other major things probably in your life that has made through that spiritual genre has helped you overcome maybe something that made you think, my gosh, that is a big thing, that's opened up to your intuition, or things that you've used that have really helped you?
Well,
Apart from the daily, which I know you go through, that helps that flow.
there are several turning points. So one big turning point was when I was thinking about my career, because I started out singing professionally in the opera and singing and teaching music in the public school system. That's when I graduated university. That's what I was doing.
Okay.
And the farther along I got in both of those careers, the less I liked them, even though I loved to sing. And even though I loved to teach, obviously, here I am teaching, just the systems that I was operating in for those two things didn't really work for me, because they had quite narrow parameters, and I'm not a very good small box person. Okay. But I didn't know that, and it took me 12 years and a lung tumor to figure out that that was not going to work out. So at some point along that journey, I was working with a very wise woman counselor, and she said to me, think about the qualities you want your work to have, not the industry, not the title, not the job. What are the qualities you want your work to have? Mm-hmm. And when I was thinking about that, at first I was in such a dark place with teaching that I had to just look at all the things list all the things I hated and then flip them. So that was kind of where I started. But then when I looked at the theme, like, here's the theme of what I want, I was able to come up with 5 words, and handfuls work really well for me, like qualities and things. So the 5 things that I came up with were freedom. It's my number one thing. I need to feel free, autonomous. Yeah, freedom, number one thing. Don't fence me in. And the second thing was beauty. I needed to have beauty in my work. So it didn't necessarily have to be physical beauty, although that helps. I do really well in a beautiful environment. It had to be like soul beauty. What I was doing needed to be beautiful beauty. Joy. I wanted to feel joyful in my work. Generosity. I wanted to have a give back or a legacy element to my work. And ease of spirit was the last one. So no matter what I was doing, when I was doing it, I would know that I was in the right place at the right time doing the right thing. So that kind of percolated around for a while. And when the lung tumor hit, I was working with a coach. I'll back up a second. So the lung tumor hit, I went on medical leave, and 6 months later, the tumor was gone, and I had a job doing corporate training at PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is one of the big 5 professional services firms in the world. But I was working with a coach in the middle, and he said to me at some point, he's like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up, little lady? He's kind of, dude. Right. And today, be like, you're fired. Don't talk to me. But,
you grew up, little child.
Yeah, I know. At the time, I laughed, and I literally had a vision. Like, I had never had a vision like this before. I have not had one since, but this was like incredibly specific. It was like the business name that I first used, which was ICU, in a circle, Times New Roman font, silver lettering, purple background, super specific, image consulting underneath it. And then the first tagline that I ever used, which was intensive care for your image. And I just started to laugh. I was like, oh my God, that's not even a real job. Like, that's that job. And he said, it's a real job. You could do that job. And I didn't know, when I was thinking about the qualities of my work, that image consulting even was a thing. So this spiritual download moment was massive. Because I was like, oh my gosh, like, there's a thing that I could do that not many people do, that would make a difference, that would be fun to do. Wow. Okay. So that was like one of the big turning point moments. So it was the woman who dropped in with the qualities of work. Then it was this other coach who asked this question, and I had a download about it. And then trying to think of the next kind of spiritual, intuitive, I've had many of them, but there was like a turning point in stepping into more of my power, because I got a bit bored in my business. And I felt kind of stuck. I was at kind of an income ceiling. And I was just like, well, I don't know, maybe I'll just go get a job or something. And another coach that I was working with said, well, okay, so while you're getting your resume and everything in order, what are you going to do in the meantime? I said, well, I'll keep doing what I'm doing with my image consulting business. And he's like, okay, he goes, what if you went all in on that just for like 6 months? You went all in. And I was like, wow, I don't know what all in would look like, because I don't think I've ever been all in anything in my life, which is hilarious. Because if I ask my friends, they're like, oh my God, if you're not all in, what is all in? What even is all in if you're not all in? But to me, I was like, I hadn't really gone hard. And so I dove right in, and I worked like, I found out that I can work 3 80-hour weeks in a row, and then I totally crash. So that was a good, interesting experiment. Yeah, like I just worked really, really hard, and then it bumped me up. But in that, I also needed to address my own image, because I'd been so into being self-expressed and funky town that I wasn't lining up with what the external expectation of an image consultant would be.
Okay.
And I was annoyed that I would have to, but it's just, it was an interesting experience, because I was like, okay, I still want to be me, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I then embrace this container of slightly a more refined, more elegant, a little bit more powerful? And my friend helped me. She's an image consultant in Ottawa. And she said, oh, she goes, there's this element of elegant about you. And I was like, whatever. Because to me, at that time, elegant is like Audrey Hepburn, Grace Kelly, very put together, very don't rock the boat, very polite. And she's like, no. She goes, you have a high level of attention to detail, and you love things to be finished, like wrapped up in a nice little bow. And I'm like, that's very true. So she helped me go into this slightly edgier look, allowed me to kind of embrace my love of that.
Let me stop you a minute.
Anyway, it was amazing. So that was like another, I have all these people popping in that are like spiritual downloads.
Let me stop you a minute.
Sure.
You're saying you went into this elegant mode. So how would you describe yourself prior to that?
It's pretty like creative, funky, a little bit sloppy, if we're being perfectly honest, because I love to be comfortable. Okay. One of my archetypes is natural, authentic, out there, comfortable. And I was allowing that to override every other aspect of my personality.
Okay.
So I wasn't allowing this desire for elegance to come out.
Yeah. And
so I had to face that. Yeah. You know what? I really like driving a nice car. It makes me feel so good. Mm-hmm. And I recognize that a car is for getting to A to B, but man, I really like the experience. So that makes me feel good. And I'm allowed to have that.
Yes. Yes.
But moving out of the conditioning of it's just a car and who cares to no, I actually really like this. This is actually good for my soul.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It made you feel good.
Yeah, it made me feel good. It's the difference between doing something for an external reward and doing it just because you enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's the difference. I would always default to the do you enjoy it? And yes, if there's an external reward, sure, people are going to think things about you based on how you show up. But
it's the difference between doing it for yourself and, as you said, the external reward, and doing it because you want people to look at you and put you in a category. And as you said, no, I'm doing this for me. This is how I feel.
Yeah.
And that's
unless you are the kind of person that loves it when people look at you. That's okay.
Yes. Yeah. Like that again, it's coming back to how you feel.
Yes. Like if that's if you love status,
recognition.
Right. If you love status and you love the way that makes you feel, then great. But again, you're doing it for yourself.
Yes, it comes back to yourself.
Right? It comes back to yourself. It's it's the joy of, like, I have clients who love designer clothing. Yeah. And they love to fly first class or business class. And they love to drive the most expensive car because they like the image that it portrays. It's still an integral part of who they are.
Yes.
Are that way. They're early adopters. They're really dramatic. They're super fashion forward, but it's who they are.
Yes.
So I'm like, great.
And we're all different. And there's room for everybody.
Exactly. And I love it. I love, I love sitting in the Fairmont and drinking a $42 smoking martini. Well, I used to. Alcohol doesn't agree with me so much anymore. But that experience, like, I'll take that experience. And I will also sip out of a solo cup in a gravel pit at a party in Prince George, which is where I grew up. And I'm fine. Right. I'm fine in both of those things. And I'll fly business class if I want to. Like if it's a actually, I've been doing an experiment there too. If it's longer than 4 hours for a flight, then to me that's worth it. But if it's less than that, I'm like, I'm okay with premium economy or even economy, because luckily I'm kind of little, so I don't really need a lot of space, and that works out for me. So it's this idea of, where do you want to place your attention on things that you value? What's it worth to you to have that experience? Right?
Okay. So we've covered the things you do in the morning and the cycle, the cyclical way you look at and you use for your life, and it seems to be working very well, and that's good, because that's helped other people to hear about that. So if you like that, go ahead. All right. And then in the evening, as you say, shutting down, probably having gratitude, looking back, taking stock, and sometimes you use the tarot cards. And again, I had interviewed somebody else regarding tarot cards, and you're doing the same thing, where it's just you use them to guide for guidance.
Yeah, like oracle decks or anything. It's just inspiration.
Like anything else. It's not to predict, should I go there, should I go, but it's more like, is this the right thing, or I want to do this, is that correct? And these things are there to guide us.
Right. It's like, universe, can you send me a sign? And the sign might be in a card, but it also might be in a book you pick up off the shelf and open to a random page.
Yes.
Right. It could be that.
And read something that ticks.
Yeah. Or if you love angel numbers, maybe you're seeing 444 everywhere, or 55, or like repeated sequences of numbers, and you love the meaning of those, then great.
Yeah.
Like, great. Maybe you see your initials on a license plate. As it drives by, you're like, okay, thanks, universe, I'm on the right track. Like,
no, do all those things you need to be aware of when you start to walk that spiritual road, and you start to connect and you start to understand there are signs all around us.
Yes.
Guide us. But moreover, is how do we feel? That connection, that's so important. And as you say, you are at the moment, you said at the beginning of this recording that at the moment what you're experimenting is that gut, that intuition.
Yes.
And strengthening that, which is your higher self. And that's where I think we all are supposed to aim for, so that we become one, so that we will be able to see and understand things, so that we can make the correct actions for our daily life and for our life.
Right.
And things we say to one another, and how we treat one another, and most likely how we treat ourselves. So you're on that road and on that journey. And I'm saying to you, well done. Well done. Is there any other thing you would like to say in order to encourage people on their spiritual path, or tips that you may have to help? And knowing that we're all different, we're all individuals, but
everybody's different. I think this is what I say to all of my clients and people that I work with. Whenever they're wondering what to do next, I say, go within to go without.
Yeah.
Spend some time, like even any amount, like 2 minutes, 1 minute, 10 minutes, 3 hours,
whatever.
5 retreat, meditation by yourself, silent, I don't know, like whatever you want to do. But spend time with yourself to really understand who you are when nobody's looking. So you're not thinking about your kids, you're not thinking about your partner, you're not thinking about your parents, you're not thinking about your friends or society or any of the other conditioning around you. Who are you when no one is looking? Because as you start to discover that, you're going to get these inputs from spirit. You'll know. It's like, oh, yes, this feels right in my body. My electromagnetic field is good. Like, go within to go without. It's the only way.
Yeah, I agree. Elizabeth, if Catherine, if people want
clean it, take it, it's fine.
Catherine, if people want to contact you with regards to doing imaging, or even ask you a question, how can they do that?
It's probably good to DM me on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. You can find me, Katherine Lazaruk. Easy to find. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So find me on social media. And if you really feel compelled, you can come to my website, lzrkconsulting.com. Generally, I'm on Instagram, though. Come find me there.
Okay. Katherine, thank you so much. Again, thank you so much for coming on today and telling us about your journey and the different things you use and the cyclical and all the difference. And I'm sure it's an eye-opener to everybody and an encouragement as well that there are so many different genres we can use that are good. And it is about going within to go without. Everything begins within us. Because, as I said, we are spiritual beings with a physical body having a human experience, and we're here to enjoy in abundance. And if things do get tough, we have the tools to help us through those difficult times.
Yes.
So once again, Katherine, thank you very much indeed. And to all my guests, bye for now.